Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Rick Mosley, who's the president of Black Pearl Insurance Solutions, and we'll be talking about college planning tips. Rick, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mike, and thank you. Glad to be here.
You know, I think we could probably talk for like a full 3-day weekend workshop on college planning tips. So we'll dive in with jump in with both feet, because I know this is such a relevant topic. You know, you hear statistics like the average student gets done with college with X amount of student loan debt, which is staggering. And then you think, hey, and those people that graduated with that staggering student loan debt are going into the educational field to teach, high school, and their average salary is unbelievably low. So there's something going on in, education where things just don't line up. So I know that if you can help your client and us understand some of these considerations, it's going to really help out financially. So where do you start with your clients, helping them to understand, this whole concept of planning for college?
Well, before we even get to that stage, we really have to take a look at just the state of higher education, the cost of higher education in general. Yeah. Just recently, there's been some recent articles that have been published, and the number that's out there right now is that it's cost $40,000 a year for a top-rated private school. So yeah, $40,000 per year. Yeah. So if your student or your child is going to that particular school for 4 years, that's $160,000. And when you take a look at an Ivy League school such as Harvard, that amount, it jumps again, goes up to about $57,000 a year. And that's not even including housing, books, and other cost of living expenses, which when you factor them in, increases the number further to $95,000 a year. So, yeah, as parents, we are dealing just with this huge number that many people don't know how to overcome. From 1980 to 2020, tuition has increased by 169%. But when you look at median wages for young adults during that same period, the increase has only been 19%. So, so before we could even get to that discussion, we just have to, bottom line, just throw it out there. College is expensive. And, according to certain reports, parents can expect to cover about 57% of the cost. And, so how are they going to do this? And when they find this question, when they ask this question, that's when they end up coming to someone like me, so that I can help them, identify ways to reduce that cost and to make it so that it's somewhat, easier on them financially, and it doesn't eat into their retirement or other assets.
And that's I probably will put you on the spot asking this statistic, but what's an average stat on this? What percentage of college age people, students, go to college these days? So where I'm going with it is, hey, my child is graduating high school in a month, and they're not going to go to college. That's probably a very small percentage of time. So in other words, when we are throwing out numbers like the cost of college is X, it's probably going to hit your family if you've got students that are, heading toward that age group, right?
That's correct. That's right. Yeah. Statistic-wise, I'd have to, do some research and get back to you, but I can tell you that.
But it's a lot.
Overall, the numbers are down because of the financial concerns, financial considerations. People do not want to go into, long-term debt, everlasting debt in order to obtain a college education. But when you have a proper college planning program in place, you can bring that number down. And that's, and that's very critical, having that particular financial plan in place and having the ability to bring that number down. A
lot of people think I'm planning for retirement, so I've got to have all my ducks in a row and all this. And then they don't think about some of the things that can poke holes in the bucket, like taxes or inflation, things like that, or expenses. But college, that's a chunk of time that is coming. And if you've got more than one child, then start multiplying. And it's something that needs to be planned for, because if the parents are going to help out as much as possible, it's going to hit the retirement plan.
Oh, definitely. When someone has a kid or someone has a child, and I'll be honest, I was in this boat myself. I thought, okay, college, oh, that's a long time away. That's
Yeah.
18 years. But before you know it, in the blink of an eye, it's there. And you have some parents out there that have tried to, put assets in the 529s and set other assets to the side, or aside rather. But by the time, because if you don't account for inflation, by the time the student becomes college age, sometimes those funds are not enough and they're
Yeah.
insufficient.
100%. Well, what are some of the things that people can do? And I know that there's myriad ways that you can do this, but what are the first places that you would start in planning for these college planning expenses coming up?
Well, first off, I think what's critical is that people keep in mind that there is financial aid available. And the FAFSA is a very important application that needs to be completed. That needs to be completed annually. And FAFSA, what that stands for, is the Free Application for Student Aid. And what it does is it determines student eligibility for financial aid in the forms of grants, loans, or work study programs. Now, for every year that you're in college, it needs to be completed, and the application has to be submitted October 1st or later for the following school year. So, the site to go to in order to complete the FAFSA is FAFSA, FAFSA.gov.gov. And completing this form is extremely important when it comes to calculating your EFC. Now, when you're completing the FAFSA, there are some common mistakes that people make that you want to watch out for. So, when it comes to making reporting your net worth, you want to make sure that you report it correctly. There's a lot of net worth mistakes that people make where they overreport their number, and that can throw off their EFC. You want to make sure that you use your gross income, or excuse me, use your adjusted gross income versus using your gross. Do not use your gross.
Mm.
Use your adjusted gross income when reporting it. Also, when it comes to home equity, you do not need to put that information on the FAFSA, because doing that will also overstate your assets. And just overall, just making certain asset mistakes in reporting, such as on your 529 and custodian accounts, etc. Those could also lead to some issues with your FAFSA as well.
Now you mentioned
But
EFC. What does that stand for, and how does that impact the planning?
now that's a great question. EFC, that stands for expected financial contribution. And for me, it's it's a critical figure that you need to get right. And what it is, it's a number that the government uses to calculate the amount that they think that you can afford, and by you I mean the student and the family, that you can afford for college. Now, the federal government uses over 74 factors to determine EFC, but the top six that are used for EFC calculations are parents' income, parents' assets, students' income, students' assets, the number of people in the household, and the number of students attending college.
I think that what you just mentioned there, like when you're saying use adjusted gross versus gross, and that could have impact EFC. Well, that also impacts the financial aid, right? Because that FAFSA form is filled out, and then that's what then the schools and then grants and scholarships and opportunities, they go off of that form. So if you put in a number that is true, but maybe not necessary, it's like, hey, I put in my home equity, it's not necessary, but now that factors into the calculation, doesn't it?
Yes, that's exactly correct. In fact, I have some examples of families that I've helped. But for example, I have this one family where it was a family of four making a modest reported income of about $55,000 a year. When they first completed or initially completed their FAFSA, their expected financial or a contribution was calculated at $16,000. However, after we were involved and we helped them and we take a look at the numbers that they were reporting and we reviewed their documentation, we were able to assist them with updating the FAFSA, which reduced their EFC or expected financial contribution down to $4,176. So that's for a family on an income of about 55,000. Now, there's some misconceptions also out there when it comes to financial aid. People think that financial aid is only for people. If you're a high income earner, financial aid is not for you. That's not
Yeah.
true. Definitely not true. If your grades are too low, financial aid is not for you. That is also incorrect. If you own a home, financial aid is not for you. That is also an untruth. It's also a misconception that financial aid is only for special groups. And based on this conversation, it's also a misconception that it's an easy process. And another misconception is that people at school can help you as well, because a lot of them, these counselors are overwhelmed. Now, when it
Yeah.
comes to the income being too high, as I said before, that is not a barrier to financial aid. With another one of my examples, I have another family that I work with, and they had a much larger adjusted gross income of $467,000, and it was a family of four. And so you can, and they had some pretty decent assets, taxable assets of about 360,000, home equity of 250,000. And when this family completed their FAFSA, their expected financial contribution, it came out to be $78,000 initially, which I
Oh,
mean that's a large amount, even for a family making that amount of money. However, we stepped in, we assisted this family, and we were able to get their EFC down to $11,000, and we were also able to get them a financial aid award of $21,000 as well. So the EFC, like I said, getting that number is very critical because it reduces what you expect to pay out of pocket, and it can also impact your financial aid awards as well.
you went through several of those misconceptions. Like a lot of people think that's not the case. Um, College planning and making financial moves sounds to me like it's not something you could just Google, download a document, fill out this, and yep, you've maximized everything. So what are some of the things that you do at Black Pearl that you work with your clients on that helps them really optimize this process?
That's awesome. That's a great question, Mike. So at Black Pearl, we do several things, but in our college with our college planning team, we have what we call our college planning process, which is based on three pillars. And with these three pillars, what we try and do, or what we do, is we work with the student to get them accepted, we work with the student to get them financial aid, and we work with them to fund the cost. Now, the way we do this is by once you partner up with us, we explore your students' career interests, their skills, their dream colleges, and academic history. We also work with the family to take a look at their out-of-pocket costs and contributions toward the student's college education. In addition to that, we analyze the financial goals and the challenges that they'll be facing. And then what we do is we review their current strategies, the family's current strategies, to see how they can afford the student education. So we do this, we set it up, we do all those things initially, and then what we do on a monthly basis or sometimes weekly basis, depending on the need, is we go back and we work with both the students and the family to identify the colleges that are going to be the ones that are ideal for them, and also to develop a plan for funding that college as well.
Yeah. So is there any examples that you can give on maybe working with a student that you were able to get some of these accomplished?
Oh, definitely, definitely. So, there's one student that we were working with. He had an SAT score of 1,200. And he was being considered or looking around at about 11 different colleges across the country. And with this student, we were able to, like I said, we were able to assist his family with updating and properly reporting their EFC. So with this family, and this is going back to the family where I was talking about earlier, one of them, where we were able to get the EFC down to $4,000 a year, which was significant for this family. And for this particular student, they received, they were accepted to University of San Diego, and they received a financial aid award package of $42,000. So I would call
Wow.
that a significant, a huge success.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty big. And then with the other family that I referenced earlier, for this family, the son was a business management major, SAT score of 1388. They were considering approximately 24 colleges, and this was the offspring or the son of the high income earner family, where we were able to reduce the EFC down to $11,200. With that particular student, we were able to get him into Baylor University with a financial aid package of $21,000, almost $22,000. And this is for a family that has family income of $467,000. So that's why I say the FAFSA and EFC making sure that that information is accurate is extremely critical. And doing that is
Yes.
extremely critical in order to and to making sure that you're able to get a package together where you receive financial aid and you're not paying full price for college.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And also, I think that you had mentioned previously that you are working with a family member. Your son is going through this, and so you're
Yes,
applying these concepts to your own family.
exactly. I sure am, Mike. So I currently have I have a senior. He's going to be a senior this year. He's going into a senior year. And we've been doing this ourselves. We've been doing the college trips. We just recently came back from a 2-week trip on the East Coast. He was invited out there actually for some football camps because he's a student athlete. But a couple of the football schools that are interested in him are Ivy Leagues. One of them is Harvard. Another one was Brown. He had a chance to actually play on both fields. I'll tell you, the Harvard field is very impressive from a historical standpoint, but I won't go there right now.
Yeah, that's another story, but impressive
That's
field.
another
Awesome.
story.
That's a factor, though. That goes into choices, doesn't it?
It does. It does go
Yeah.
into it, making sure that they're comfortable with the environment and the area and everything. So, we've checked out these schools. We visited those schools, Penn State, multiple schools down in the South. And we just had a very, enjoyable trip. It's expensive, as you know, but it was quite enjoyable. But, when it comes to the Ivy League schools, and I'm not sure if everyone, listening to this knows this, but even if you are a student athlete, the Ivy League schools do not provide student athletes with athletic scholarships. It's all based on academics. So, so even if he is accepted to Harvard or he's accepted to Brown, this type of college planning, which I'm sharing with everyone else, I'm currently doing it with my own son, because if he gets accepted to either one of those schools and he wants to go there, I'm going to be the one that has to fund it. And I want to make sure personally, even for my family, that we receive the best financial aid package possible, and we receive the best or the lowest EFC that we can. Being in this business,
Yeah.
you know how it is. I mean, I'm fortunate that I have an inside view of it, but even having an inside view of it with all of these other things going on, I'm just as busy as any other parent trying to juggle all these things. And I'll tell you that if it weren't for the team that I'm utilizing, even for my son's case, I don't know how I would get it done with all of this travel. It's been very,
Yep.
overwhelmed.
Yeah, huge point. Well, it's just, I think the big thing that we'll just reiterate here is the fact that this is something that you cannot do on your own. You could try, but what if you miss something? What if you do something not as optimal, and you leave money on the table or things fall through the cracks, kind of a thing? So I think that's a big opportunity just to keep in mind that way. So what are some final thoughts on college planning tips? And then let us finish up with how can people learn more and reach out, connect with you to see what you could potentially do to help them.
Okay, I'd be glad to do that, Mike. So if you're listening to this interview, I mean, it's going to be apparent that you care about your college, your child's college aspirations. If they're going into either 9th grade or 10th grade this year, now is definitely a good time to start working on college planning. As you heard us say earlier in this interview, college planning is even more important if you're in the 11th or even going into 12th grade. So once you become a senior, the deadlines, they start. That's when they start. And getting the right assistance during that senior year is extremely important, because if you don't and you miss certain deadlines, there's money that you can leave on the table. And you may end up paying full price for college. So regardless of income, assets, or GPA, getting the appropriate EFC is key to making that happen. And without it, you or your family may end up sacrificing either retirement funds or other assets to pay for college. So if you're motivated, if you're serious about college, you're from a friendly family, and you have parents who are serious about money or retirement, I urge them to take action today. Don't delay. Get moving on it, because if you don't, someone else who's already doing the planning, they will, and they'll get access to the funds that you've left on the table. So that's my closing advice. My name is Rick Mosley. Black Pearl Solutions is my company. We are at myblackpearl.co, and our phone number is 818-918-4644. And my personal email is Rick, R-I-C-K, .Mosley, M-O-S-L-E-Y, at myblackpro.co. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see what we can do to help you and your family.
Excellent. Well, Rick, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure learning some of these tips from you.
It's my pleasure, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.